Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Countdown to Infinity. This is episode 21. Today we're talking about Captain Marvel. It's been a hot minute since we last were with you. July, in fact, of last year.
It's been so long.
Was it July?
Yeah, it was July.
I think it was July. This has been a very big space between the most recent two Marvel movies. It's been a while, and it's gonna probably happen again.
It's definitely happening again.
We can talk about that in a minute. Hey, joining me, of course, as always, is Matt.
Hi.
How's it going, Matt?
I'm all right. How are you?
You ready to talk about? I'm good. You ready to talk about a Marvel movie?
I am ready to talk about a Marvel movie. I've been going through Marvel movie conversation withdrawals. It's been so hard this week. We're recording on the Wednesday. What is it?
Yep.
Wednesday, March 13th. And I think we both went and saw this movie on opening night. And so far, my
Correct.
Twitter posts about this movie have been, I went and saw the movie. You should go see the movie. And then subsequently, I went and saw the movie in IMAX. And I've been mostly, not entirely, but mostly sort of keeping my opinions on the DL until we had a chance.
I don't think anybody was shocked to hear that I liked it, and unless you tell me right now that you didn't like it, which, to be fair, I know you didn't because we've talked at least a little bit, but who knows? Maybe you've changed your mind. Maybe you saw it a second time and you were like, oh, I have some problems with this movie.
Oh, well, actually, my opinions went the other way. So
did they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that too. But yeah. That's
all right. What do we got here? We got Captain Marvel. This movie has only just been released, of course. Who we got? Directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck.
Mm-hmm.
Produced by some guy named Kevin.
Who's heard of that guy? He sounds like a
right.
dweeb.
A screenplay by like 30 million people. A story by like 30 million people.
Well.
Yeah, it's a story actually. Is it? Who is the actual woman who worked on Guardians of the Galaxy as well?
Nicole Perlman.
Is it Nicole Perlman?
Yeah.
It shows a lot. And then, of course, starring Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, and a whole bunch of other people we'll get to when we start talking about this. It's made a whole lot of money.
It has. Opening weekend of almost $500 million.
Yeah, worldwide, that is.
Worldwide, yeah.
Making it the second highest grossing film of 2019 so far, apparently.
Yep.
Although it should take over The Wandering Earth.
Which is a good movie, but this is not the Wandering Earth cast, so
That's true.
We'll not go into that.
Is that a thing? Is there a podcast that I'm unaware of?
There should be. That movie swings for the fences.
That movie also cost significantly. That movie only cost $50 million to make.
Yeah.
The Wandering Earth. Captain Marvel
is impressive.
152 million to 175 million apparently.
I was looking at numbers for this. This is the 6th largest domestic opening for a Marvel film to date, 6th or 7th. But
bad.
I believe it's the 2nd highest worldwide opening for a Marvel movie to date. So that's like really good. This movie's doing gangbusters.
It's also the highest earning Marvel movie with a woman in the lead.
Isn't it the only Marvel movie with a woman in the lead?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a jab.
It's interesting because this movie has been in development forever, which is partly why there are so many different writers and story people involved in this one. Because, like, I was reading an interview or something the other day, and, like, this conception of the character of Captain Marvel, like the character redesign and Kelly Sue DeConnick's, like, retreatment of the character, and the first Captain Marvel issue with Carol Danvers in the role, came out in like 2012. Like this character, like the character of Carol Danvers is, dates back to the 70s, or like even the late 60s. But as with the Captain Marvel moniker, actually only dates back to like 2012. And apparently it was like within 8 months of the debut of that comic, they had a screenplay for this film.
Right.
And they've just been like reworking it and sitting on it and like trying to figure out when the right time to do it was. And that was at the time when like Ike Perlmutter was still in charge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he was like, "Oh, women-led films don't sell. We can't do it. They're all garbage movies." And so like this script has just been like floating in the background now for almost a decade. So it's good that this movie finally saw the light of day.
I agree. You want to give us your classic plot synopsis, and then we can get into chatting about this thing?
Sure. I'm going to try and keep this one a little slimmer than I normally do.
That's fair.
We'll see how it goes.
I think going forward we can start doing that because, like, presumably these are things that people have literally just seen.
Well, yeah.
So they know what's kind of going on.
Yeah.
All right, hit us up.
But I don't want to do a disservice to the people that haven't seen it and are literally here for my descriptions of the films so that they don't have to go out and see them. Anyhow, this movie, Captain Marvel, it is functionally a like character piece that is interested with finding out who Captain Marvel is. So it starts on the home world of the Kree, planet Hala, and Vers, or Veers, I guess, as portrayed by Brie Larson, is a member of Star Force, the Kree Star Force, who defend the Kree Empire against incursions of the Skrulls. And anyhow, she has these weird visions of people that she doesn't remember and events that she can't recall. And so she just doesn't know her past. And this troubles her a little bit. But her mentor, Jan Rog, keeps telling her, put the past behind you, focus on the here and now, don't let your emotions get the better of you, and so on. And anyhow, she goes to visit the Supreme Intelligence of the Kree Empire, who takes the form of someone from her past that she sees in these visions who she doesn't know. And the Supreme Intelligence is like, well, maybe this is a blessing. You can start over, and you don't have to worry about your past. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. You've got a mission. So the Star Force team, headed by Jan Rog, of which Veers is a member, heads off to... I do not remember the name of the planet, but heads off to a planet that has apparently been the location where a Kree spy has holed up, waiting for the Kree to come get him. He's got a whole bunch of intelligence, so they're off to go pick him up. They head to the planet. They get into an interaction with the locals. They know where they're going to find this guy. Turns out all the locals are actually Skrulls, and it's an ambush. And they capture Veers and take her on board the Kree ship. So on board the Kree ship, they do like a mind meld thing where they dig into her brain and dig a little deeper and reveal a little bit more about all of these events that she can't remember, to the point that it wakes her up. Like she gets woken up by this after being in the machine. She breaks out of the machine. She wrecks the ship and manages to escape in an escape pod, landing on planet C65? C35? Planet
I want
Earth.
to say C35. I can't remember exactly what they said, but I think it was C35.
C35. Anyhow, she lands on planet Earth, crashes into a blockbuster. You may have seen it in the trailers. So she sends a message back to Kree Star Force being like, hey, I'm on planet C65. There are Skrull, or C35. There are Skrulls here. Come get me. While she is there, she gets found by none other than Nick Fury and Agent Coulson, who are there to arrest her because she fell out of the sky and busted up a Blockbuster and a Radio Shack. While they're trying to arrest her, a Skrull appears and tries to blow her away, and she gets into a chase with him, and then Nick Fury and Agent Coulson chase after her. She chases the Skrull. The Skrulls, it turns out, are shapeshifters who can infiltrate through deceit. She chases them, and through the chase, it turns out that Agent Coulson has actually been replicated by a Skrull. Nick Fury crashes his car, killing the Skrull that is taking the place of Agent Coulson in his car, and loses Veers. She gets away, and so anyhow, the Skrull gets taken back to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. They do an alien autopsy on it, and in the meantime, Veers manages to get catcalled by a random dude on a bike. She steals the bike. She gets a little bit of information just from various bits and bobs that send her to a bar. Nick also has picked up some of this information, he also manages to get to the bar ahead of her, heads her off. While in the bar, they form a little friendship because now Nick believes that, in fact, there are aliens on Earth. So they decide to work together. And in the bar, this is a bar that Veers remembers having been to and having memories in. And she uses her friendship with Nick Fury to figure out one piece of information that was revealed to her when the Skrulls were doing their mind dive, which is Project Phoenix. She remembers something to do with Project Phoenix. So Nick takes her to an Air Force base in the middle of the California desert where Project Phoenix took place. And at this Air Force base, they discover a whole bunch of information. It turns out that the person she was looking for was a Dr. Lawson. And it also turns out that Dr. Lawson was a Kree. And she had been working on a light speed engine, which she had told... or which, she had been working on it as a means to end the Skrull-Kree or Kree-Skrull war. But she died in a plane crash. Through finding this, Veers also discovers a photograph of of Dr. Lawson and Maria Rambeau, but in the background, she can see herself boarding an F-16. And so that leads her to realize that, A, she needs to go visit Maria Rambeau to find out more about herself and more about Lawson, but also that maybe she had a life here on Earth, and that all the things she's remembering are that, in fact, she's from Earth. So S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up, wrecks the day. It turns out that Nick Fury's boss has been taken over and has been simmed by the Skrull leader, General Talos. Fury and Veers go on the run. They manage to get away because Coulson lets them leave, and they head off they steal a prototype Quinjet and fly off to Maria Rambeau's house. Jet. Is it a quad jet?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So they go to Maria Rambeau's house. It turns out 6 years ago, Veers was Carol Danvers, and she was a test pilot for the U.S. Air Force. She and Maria Rambeau were best friends, and they had helped raise... she had helped raise Maria Rambeau's daughter, and 6 years ago, Carol had gone on a test flight with Dr. Lawson, and the flight had ended in a crash, and everybody had told Maria Rambeau she was dead. So they have a sort of reunite. Carol learns more about her past and learns that she was in fact Carol, and then it turns out that Talos has followed them, and he manages to crash this party. And he's crashed this party, but he brought with him a piece of information, a recording from the black box in the ship in the plane that Carol had been flying at the time. And the black box recording reveals that, in fact, the plane had been shot down. They were flying to Dr. Lawson's laboratory, which was in space, and they had been attacked and shot down. And this jogs Carol's memory. She remembers that they were flying to this orbital laboratory for reasons she's still not sure quite why, but that they were attacked, they crash landed, and then she remembers that it was Jan Rog that shot her down. And so she has a change of heart. She decides that she's gonna, Talos has this sort of passionate appeal. It's like, listen, we're refugees. We have been wiped out by the Kree. We have no planet left to call our home because the Kree have destroyed it. And we were looking to Lawson, who was Kree scientist Mar-Vell, to build this lightspeed engine, which would allow us to get to a new homeworld that's out of reach of the Kree Empire. And we just need to get up to the space station in order to get the energy core so that we can build a lightspeed engine of our own and find a new home. So she has a change of heart. She decides to go help. In the meantime, Jan Rog has called in Ronan and the Accusers to come bomb the hell out of Earth, and because he's decided that there are a Kree here, so we have to destroy them all. And he's sort of trying to deal with the mess that he's made by having kept Veers alive and brought her back to the Kree homeworld and so on. So, anyhow, they decide to go to the space station. They do that on the space station. It turns out that actually Talos wasn't really looking for the core as his primary objective anyhow, but in fact his family has been living on this space station for 6 years, since the death of Mar-Vell, and he just, was looking to be reunited. And they do find the core, and that does help them as things progress, but ultimately that was his primary motivation, was to reunite with his wife and his daughter and the other Skrulls that are on the space station. So anyhow, they get to the space station, they reunite, then all of a sudden Yon-Rogg and Starforce show up. There are a whole bunch of fights, and ultimately Carol is captured, and in an attempt to sort of bring her back under control, they meld her with the Supreme Intelligence again, at which point she realizes that the Kree have basically been afraid of her power set, which she has had for a long time, or for 6 years, and they've been suppressing her power set. She also learns that she got her power set when she was shot down by Yon-Rogg. She blew up the Lightspeed engine and absorbed the power of the energy core. The energy core, of course, it turns out, is the Tesseract. So Captain Marvel basically has her powers sort of by proxy as having absorbed the energy of the Tesseract. And this all comes to a head when she realizes that the Kree have just been holding her back and suppressing her powers. So she rips off the little regulator she has and goes nuts. She goes Super Saiyan.
No, what's it really called?
She goes binary form.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But
don't cross the streams, Matthew.
I'm going to cross the streams.
We're going to get sued by the Dragon Ball people.
Yeah, she blows a hole through one of the Accuser's ships. She wrecks Starforce. She gets into after all this is dealt with and Earth is safe again, she lands on Earth for her final showdown with Yon-Rogg, where he's like, prove to me, this is your chance, face me one-on-one without your powers, and she just blows him away and is like, I have nothing to prove to you. And then she sends him back to Hala with the message, I'm coming for you and I'm going to tear it all down. And then she sets off with the Skrulls to go help them settle a new homeworld. The end.
Good job. I mean, you said you're going to keep that short. That's still like almost the same length as the movie, it feels like.
Well, I don't know. It was 10 minutes as opposed to like 22. We're only at the 18-minute mark. We're not halfway through the podcast yet.
That's fair. So yeah, the big thing with this one is it's a prequel, obviously. Takes place in 1995.
It does.
They try not to let you forget that. And I think that was one of my bigger gripes coming out, was just like, I don't know, I think at the time I've settled back down on it at this point, but I was like, they really, really made sure we remembered that it was 1995 a lot of the time. But it was still cute and funny the ways that they did it.
Yeah.
I would be very curious to know if, basically, this is, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, you talked about how a form of this movie has existed for quite some time.
Since 1995, in fact.
Sure. I'm curious to see what kind of movie this would have been if they had found a spot for it earlier, I guess. Like, we're at this really awkward time, or Ant-Man and the Wasp and this movie particularly fell in this really awkward time when you're in between Infinity War and Endgame, right?
Right.
And that's not a great time to release a Marvel movie, because like your options, I'm sure they probably thought about it. They're like, what if we just don't release a movie between those two? And to be honest, I think I've actually would have preferred not that, but that with 6 months in between. I would have really loved to have seen Infinity War come out when it did, and then have Endgame at like a Christmas time thing. Because I think this movie, less than Ant-Man and the Wasp, suffered because of it. I think they got around it with this movie by just making a straight up prequel origin movie takes place decades before anything is happening.
Right.
Which I thought was really cool. And to be honest, I think besides probably, I was thinking about this the other day, Captain America, like the first Captain America, this is probably my second favorite origin film in the MCU. And I think it works so well because the fact that it's not just Captain Marvel's origin film, it's also Nick Fury's origin film.
Right.
And to a lesser degree, Coulson. Like, it was great to see Clark Gregg back in that role on the big screen. I wish we had seen more. Like, I feel like he could have been used a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with that. For all the like, he's coming back that they sort of like alluded to, he didn't really come back. He had like 2 moments in this movie, and like they were good moments. They were great character moments.
They were
okay. So my favorite thing about this movie, before we get there, but spoilers for later in the episode, I guess, is this movie absolutely thrives on its character moments. This movie
absolutely.
is character moments from beginning to end. The character work in this movie is exceptional for a Marvel movie. Like it is beyond what I have come to expect, and all of these movies live or die on the quality of the character interactions more than anything else. This one, like, just it next levels it. Like, the character moments in this are great.
I mean, I think it helps that a lot of those moments, at least a lot of the moments for Fury, that's just significant payoff for the last 10 years. We see Nick Fury much later on in his career, and we get to know him in this very different role. And then we go back and we see him as this, newbie level 3 SHIELD agent who probably has no idea what Project Pegasus was, or that any of this sort of, cosmic crap exists in the world. I think that's really cool. I thought that was really neat. So.
I agree. So yeah, I don't know. What do you want to talk about next?
I don't know. I'm curious. You said you have a gripe, and
you want to know what my nitpick is?
Yeah, I've been waiting for this nitpick for a while because you wouldn't tell me.
Okay, so this actually is going to segue into another conversation that I wanted to have anyhow. So that's good.
Perfect.
So my nitpick is the sound cue for "I'm Just a Girl."
What?
So
okay,
that fight scene starts on the space station.
Yeah,
and it's like she jumps down off the catwalk. The sound, like the needle drops, and the song starts, and then she immediately photon blasts a guy into a jukebox.
Right.
And it's like, why did you not line that up so that she photon blasts the guy into the jukebox, and that cues the music?
Right.
It's super jarring. And it's just like, you've been playing with like diegesis in the music all through the movie to this point. Why not just go with it? Particularly because generally speaking, when you crash into a jukebox, the music stops, not starts. Sure, but you could totally still get away with it, where he bashes the jukebox and that causes it to turn on, right? Like, sure, it's a nitpick. But it was one of those things that stood out to me. It's like, if you're going to knock him into a jukebox, at least tie that to the music. Sure. And then there's like, a bigger nitpick about the choice of that song in that context, because nobody in the movie, at least not in the movie, in her past, sure, but nobody in the movie actually really questioned her ability based on her being a woman. The Star Force is like 60-40 men, women. And so like the song, it's good, but it's not a great thematic fit with that fight.
I think that was tried to speak more to, I think that was more of a blunt, message to the audience.
Oh, absolutely. Right? 100%.
Yeah.
It's just like, there are a few things in the film where it's like, they could have done that tighter thematically. That was also one of the, like, so now I'm getting into my criticisms of the film, but we'll get into like things I like because I really did like it.
We should be talking about things we like.
Yeah, I like my major criticism of the film, I think, sort of related to this, is the emotion element of it. Like, don't let your emotions take control. Don't, you overcome your emotions. Well, at no point in the movie do we see her grappling with emotionality as like a problem, right? Like it is never something she has to overcome. It's not even like a control thing, right? Because she's not out of control in her powers. She's got this little regulator on that regulates it. And so there's no point where she's just like out of control and has to bring it into control.
No, but isn't that them? Because the person that's Yang, that's Yang Rog who's saying that, right?
That's him trying to suppress as well.
Yeah, that's them. They know the truth. They're trying to suppress it. They're trying to keep her in check, and theoretically also, I guess, try to stop her from having these visions and remembering what's going on and stuff like that. So if you take emotion out of it, then maybe that helps with their cause.
Yeah, but like the movie kind of plays coy with that whole idea, right? Because either they're just feeding that to her as a line, in which case, like, it's never been a problem, and they're just feeding it to her as like, oh, well, don't get emotional. Or it's like legitimately a problem, and they've suppressed it, but she never ends up having to overcome it. Like, they don't tie it into her character arc at all. It's just sort of like a motif that they play with, but they don't ever actually tie it into her character arc. Her character arc is not about her controlling her emotions or her emotions like getting the best of her, because they bring that up a couple of times in various places where it's like, it's mostly on Rog, but like, don't let your emotions get the best of you. But she never does that. She's like hyper competent even when she's being quippy and funny at the beginning of the film, which is fine. Like, that's great. She should be hyper competent. But if you're gonna like queue up that subplot, tie it into her character arc in some way, because like there's just it only has a surface level at this point in time. It's not tied thematically into the film really at all.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like that is my one major criticism, and it may just be that it got lost in the edit, right? Like, this movie feels like it's been worked on a lot, and so that it's like, oh, well, this is a good idea that they just cut the full execution on, or they just decided that it wasn't really working the way they wanted it to, and so they just sort of like took as much of it out as they could. It's one of those things that frankly might have come off as like the stereotypical plot for the kind of movie they were trying to do, where it's like, the female hero is the emotional one who has to control it, and like they may have steered away from that in terms of like, oh, maybe this isn't the story we want to tell.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just this dumb, stupid Jude Law man who's being like, no, you got to keep your emotions in check, when in reality it's just like, no, not really. Like, that's not an issue at all.
Yeah.
So.
And if that was the story, like if that was the way they wanted to go with it, that also is perfectly fine. I just would have liked to see them develop it a little more, because there's like the setup and the payoff right at the very end, but it doesn't tie into like it is just a setup and a payoff. It's not a theme. So like that's it. It just like that contributes to the film feeling a little loose, and a little sort of edited together. But as I say, like, all the character moments in this movie are so like, I don't want to go too long on like, this is the thing that bugged me about it. Particularly since like I went and saw it the first time and I was like, that was good. I enjoyed that. That was neither my favorite Marvel movie nor my least favorite Marvel movie. I liked it. It was a fun time at the theater. And then I sort of sat on it for a while and read a couple of reviews and was like, oh, what do other people think about this? And then I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't as good as I thought. And then I went back and saw it last night, and I'm like, no, it was better than I remember it. This movie is actually really good.
It is very good.
And I still think it feels a little bit loose, but it like everything works well enough that it's like, it's good. It's better than it's not.
I mean, I think it perfectly encapsulates an above average Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it is not, I agree, it is not my top Marvel movie. It probably maybe breaks the top 10. And I mean, that's a conversation, like, we spent, like 19, 18 weeks last year discussing these movies and ranking them. And now that we're getting closer to Endgame again, I'm starting to see they're playing these on TV again a lot. So often my Sundays in the last few weeks have basically just been lazing about and watching these movies again. And I looked at my list the other night where we were at after Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I'm like, oh, this list is wrong now. I need to make some edits to this list, but this movie 100% falls in line with an above average Marvel film. I think it's unbelievably about freaking time that we had one with a woman lead. It's the same thing. Yeah, way overdue. It's the same sort of reaction I see on the internet to Black Panther, where it's just like, man, there is an entire audience of people who are unbelievably in love with this movie because of what it represents.
Yeah.
And, we get to look at it through the eyes of 35-year-old white dudes.
Yeah, who cares what we have to say?
Yeah, it was pretty good for a Marvel movie. It's like nobody cares. But, I think my favorite tweet was, I finally understand why, men are so confident. I've seen one female led, action movie, and I feel like I could kick the ass of 100 idiots, sort of thing like that. It's just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I am so incredibly happy that it fills that role, and clearly, just like Black Panther, it's just like, see that, like, people will pay for this. Mm-hmm. There's literally $500 million on the ground right over there in a week if you want it.
Yeah, just like make a good movie.
Yeah, just make a good movie with representation that doesn't see many other kind of movies.
Yeah,
and hopefully this is there's still talk about Black Widow getting their own movie soon.
Yep, keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah, which is I'm excited for, and from what I've read, it sounds like it'll also be kind of like a prequel kind of thing, which makes a tremendous amount of sense, to be honest. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, they cast their director for Shang-Chi today. I saw that notice went out. That's cool. Shang-Chi, they're digging deep, but hey, whatever it takes. I completely agree. As I said, I appreciate everybody who's tuned in to listen to us ramble on about about this movie, but our opinions are those of 30-something white dudes.
You also
don't
know our
as
opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we liked it. Surprise.
Like these old... Yeah. You know what I figured out? Or I think what they figured out with this movie, how to properly use so number one, it was used to an incredible effect, which is the de-age.
Oh, post.
Yeah. So I think there was two reasons why it worked so well for me in this movie. One, it's just the technology is getting better, right? Like, just straight up, the technology will continue to get better and better, and this will become more and more used, and it will be easier or harder and harder to, recognize. And number two, I think the reason why it worked so well is because it was the whole movie. You look at that process they used on Hank Pym. They used it on, what's his name, in Guardians 2. They used it on Tony Stark in
Civil War.
Civil War. I think the reason why it didn't work so well there as it did here with especially Sam Jackson is that it was the whole movie. You don't have to jump back and forth between the two, where it's just like, oh right, I know for a fact that's the real version of you,
mm-hmm.
and that's the digital version. Where in this movie we didn't have that option.
Yeah,
we only had the one, which I think helps a lot to sort of suspend the disbelief of being like, that's not what you look like.
Yeah, it worked perfectly for me. I was not able to tell at all. I've heard a few people be like, "Oh, Clark Gregg didn't look quite as good, but Nick Fury was really convinced." I could not tell. They looked real.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree that I think Nick Fury looked better than Coulson.
I imagine they spent more of their budget on Nick Fury than they did on Coulson.
Absolutely, they probably did. I have no doubt. And it was probably also a little bit easier. Like, I think, like, we're talking about, like, you're talking about Sam Jackson, who is almost 70 years old.
Yep.
Compared to Clark Gregg, who is not.
Yep.
Clark Gregg is probably in his mid-50s, would be my guess.
Yeah, I think that sounds probably about right.
Yeah, so you have to work a little harder, too, on the older guy, I suppose.
Yep.
But I thought it was great.
I saw one comment over the last couple of days being like, it's funny looking at their de-aging of Sam Jackson in this movie because we actually know what Sam Jackson looked like in 1995 because you can go watch Die Hard with a Vengeance, and that came out in 1996, and so you can compare what he looked like then versus what they did to de-age him, and they're like, well, actually it looks like Nick Fury and Sam Jackson are not actually the same age. He's playing a character that's like 5 or 6 years younger, I think, than he actually is. So yeah, anyhow, like that sort of thing is interesting. But I think that tech has come a long way, and I agree with you that when you don't have a point of comparison against their current
real
form,
life, their current real life form
in the movie, that helps.
Yep, absolutely.
Character wise, another thing I want to comment on, Brie Larson did an amazing job.
Yeah,
she did an amazing job. I was originally a little hesitant about the casting of Brie Larson, and the reason for that is like I liked the Captain Marvel comics. I read the Captain Marvel comics up to Secret War, I think, and then I fell off the wagon because Secret War was an omni shamble. But like the character, so the character of Captain Marvel in the comics is, think, sarcastic Steve Rogers, right? Like, I think Kelly Sue DeConnick again had a tweet where it's like, Captain America gets knocked down and gets back up again because it's the right thing to do. Captain Marvel gets knocked down and gets back up again because F you, that's why. And like, she's got that sort of like hard-edged military background in the comics, and so she's sort of the like, again, that sort of like hard-edged, no-nonsense character, but sarcastic instead of good-natured. And so when they cast Brie Larson, I was like, oh, her presence is not that. But they made a very good choice. Their casting continues to be super on point. The character is not that in the movie, right? And it makes total sense that the character is not that in the movie, just because having a second Steve Rogers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe would just feel like they were repeating themselves. So she has a different character to her. She's not quite as sort of hard-edged. She still has the sort of sarcastic quippiness, but she's not like a straight and narrow sort of like super military. She's sort of the rebellious one. And that totally works. And I am like, I think they completely won me over. Like 5 minutes into the movie, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm sold. Done. 1,000,000% in. And so like, kudos to Brie Larson for doing a great job, and kudos to the casting director for realizing that this was the right way to go.
I think as I was watching the film, I was like, man, I want so badly to have a Spider-Man Captain Marvel team up movie now, because Lord, those two together I think would play off each other so well.
Yeah.
It would be really good.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we get something in Endgame just even a scene, just a few lines of dialogue, and then who knows what we get in the future. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yep.
Should we talk about the best Stan Lee cameo of all time?
Absolutely, we should talk about the best Stan Lee cameo of all time.
So number one, what they did at the beginning of the movie was really touching and incredible.
I think I audibly said, "Aw."
The entire theater, you could hear the sort of the gasps and the choking back tears almost, and the like the roaring, like there, I wouldn't say erupted in cheer by any means when it said "Thank you, Stan," but just like a big round of applause, which was super nice.
Yeah, that's great.
So if you haven't seen the movie, by the way, at the beginning of every Marvel movie is the sort of the little thing for Marvel Studios, and it's their 3D logo with scenes from all the movies sort of on it, and it, you know, they play the music and stuff. And this time they did that with all of Stan Lee's cameos, and it was sweet, and it was nice. And because this was the first live action Marvel movie, and obviously the first Marvel MCU movie to come out since he passed away, because obviously he had a cameo in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse before that, but this was live action, obviously, so that was incredibly nice. But his cameo in this film was, I like, if there has ever been a cameo of Stan Lee like directly made for, you know, the 35 to 40-year-old guy.
Yep.
Like, this is it. Like, it is. I'm sorry. It just is, because it is Stan Lee sitting on a train during that scene that you heard Matt talk about, which is where she fought the Skrull, who turned into the little old lady.
She just winds up and decks a little old lady.
Yeah.
You've seen it in the trailers.
Fun fact.
The little old lady did her own stunts.
No. That would be awesome, though. So the first hit, she hits her and the glasses come off.
Right.
There's a move in the fight scene where she pulls her into the pole, and originally there was a take where her dentures flew out.
Oh no.
Yeah, and they, I guess, decided to cut that.
Yeah, that's for the best.
I read that today and I was like, that's perfect.
Why would the Skrull have dentures?
I think that's probably why they cut it.
Yeah.
Is because they're like, my guess is they were like, wait, that wouldn't work, because they take the form. They don't. Yeah. So presumably that's why they cut it. Also, maybe because they're like, no, that's weird. Anyways, on this train, while she's looking for the Skrull, she runs into Stan Lee, who's sitting there reading the script to Mallrats.
Reading his line from the script to Mallrats.
He literally says one of his lines from the Mallrats script, and I lost it.
Oh yeah.
Like, look, I don't pay attention to Kevin Smith quite as much as I used to. I am legitimately excited for this reboot of Jay and Silent Bob that they've just started filming, because I'm gonna go see it because it sounds hilarious.
Tune in later this year for a countdown to Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Honestly, I would do that. I would watch all of the View Askew universe. Like, I wouldn't watch all of his movies because some of them don't need to be watched, but I would watch all of those movies in lead up. That'd be fun. Anyways, Kevin Smith was huge when Matt and I were growing up, right? Mm-hmm. Like in late high school, early 20s. Like, yep. He was that indie filmmaker that was making all these movies that were awesome. Chasing Amy, Dogma, Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, like Clerks. Like, this is the guy. So to see him sitting there as himself, essentially, right?
Yep.
He's playing himself in this one,
and like right at the right time, because that movie would have been filmed in like late '94, so
or something like that.
The right time period, like it was the perfect cameo. It was like, oh hey, we get to tie this into the '90s, and Stan Lee gets to play Stan Lee, like canonically Stan Lee, and yeah,
it was great. I lost it. I loved it. Apparently, Kevin Smith like just completely lost it. He posted a really cute photo of him clearly crying on Instagram. It was very good. I really liked it.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Matt, because I have a fun. I'm curious if you know this one.
Okay.
So, you just mentioned how it was like perfectly timed.
Right.
Okay, check this one out. When at the beginning of the movie, Brie Larson is standing outside the Blockbuster and Radio Shack and talking on the phone. In the background, to that scene, there's a lot of posters. There's like a Rock the Vote poster.
Yep.
And a bunch of other stuff. One of the posters that's out there as well is a promotional poster for Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Yep.
So now that makes sense. That's a album that came out around that time. It came out October of 1995. Do you know why that's kind of cool how they managed to do you know what that ties to in the Brie Larson greater universe?
In the Brie Larson greater universe.
Yeah.
No, I'm drawing a blank.
There's this run of comics that I know you're a big fan of.
Okay.
Scott something.
Oh, Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim. What do you have them with you? Can you look at them right now?
I could probably track one down without too much effort.
Book number 3, I believe.
Which I have with me.
What's it called?
Let me remind myself. It is Scott Pilgrim and the Infinite Sadness.
Who did Brie Larson play in the Scott Pilgrim movie?
Oh, I cannot remember her name, but she
played the ex.
girl that's on the cover of this issue.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's good.
Isn't that cool?
What's her name? Now I have to look it up. Now I cannot. I will never forgive myself if I don't look it up, because it will keep me up all night long. And I should know.
She has a real name and a fake name, remember? I don't remember what either of them are. Scott.
It's like Pilgrim. It opens with the concert. Envy Adams. That's who it is. Envy Adams.
Yeah. Natalie.
That's right, because the Envy was taken from her actual name.
Yeah. But so that is not something I will not take credit for figuring that out. I read that today.
Nice.
Looking up some fun little factoids about this movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that was incredible. That's just a really great Easter egg that you have to look hard for.
Yeah.
The other one that I saw, which I thought was super cute, is when she crashes into Blockbuster and walks out, and she talks to the security guard.
Yep. That
guy who's playing the security guard there is actually the head of security for the Marvel films.
Oh, that's awesome.
He is the actual security guard who manages all of the security guards for Marvel sets.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is cute.
Was super sweet.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's a cool movie.
Yeah.
I think they just did a lot of really cool stuff with this one. So I am a big fan.
Circling back to the Stan Lee cameo for a minute, I also saw it published today that they are running out of Stan Lee cameos.
They are, so I think
Garrett, they have confirmed that there is a Stan Lee cameo in Endgame.
Yeah. There might be something for Spider-Man.
Yeah, they have also heavily alluded to the fact that they have one for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But they probably don't have any more after that. And it sounds like they are weighing the possibility of digitally including him in future films.
Yep.
It sounds like they haven't come to a solid direction yet, but they're
I guess what surprises me there is of course that's something that they would consider. Hearing that they're considering that does not surprise me at all. What surprises me is that this wasn't actually a conversation that they had with Stan Lee before he passed away.
Yeah.
Hey, people love these. People love you, and we, if you want, would love to continue to include you in these films for as long as we can do it, as long as we can make it work. I'm just surprised that that's the conversation that didn't happen, or maybe if it did, I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, particularly with the issues that arose in the news over the last years of his life, where like his his publicist or his PR or his agent or something was like exploiting his likeness and exploiting him basically, and like there were lawsuits and all that kind of thing that never really got resolved. It's entirely possible that they did have that conversation and then were like, oh, but we can't count on that. We don't know that was
That's
actually
totally
his
fair.
will. Because we don't know what was going on behind the scenes there, right? So it's possible that they just don't know. Otherwise, I could see them doing what they did for the TV shows and just having him, like, a photo of him as the chief of police or whatever in future films. But I look forward to seeing what they do.
For what it's worth, I would not have a problem with them digitally placing him in movies for as long as they damn well want.
Yeah.
I think it works well with the idea of these comic book characters who can live long beyond any sort of normal life, right? Like, the characters live on even though the creators have long left, and certainly Stan Lee is one of the biggest creators of these characters. It'd be one thing if he had done like one or two and it seemed like he was always hesitant to maybe do them, but it's clear that he loved doing these.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you wouldn't see him in all 21 of these movies. And not only just these movies, but any Marvel film, really, since the late 90s, basically.
I'd have to look it up to find out if there was, which Marvel movies did he not appear in?
Yeah.
That's the question. I am fairly certain, like 90%, that he did not appear in Josh Trank's Fantastic Four.
It's possible. So we've got outside. Okay, so live action, X-Men, Last Stand, Deadpool, Apocalypse, Deadpool 2, Spider-Man 2 and 3, Fantastic Four, and Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Oh, he wasn't. No, he was in both of those.
Yeah, he was in both Amazing Spider-Mans. He was apparently he had filmed a cameo for Blade, but it was deleted. Daredevil, Hulk, Man-Thing, Venom.
Man-Thing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
2005. It's a photograph.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Huh.
Indeed.
So, I mean, a lot, like... And then he's been in every single MCU, I think, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
there's not an MCU movie he hasn't been in.
Yeah. And he appeared on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He appeared in Agent Carter. It looks like...
He was
in still photographs in a bunch of the Netflix ones. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he clearly enjoyed doing it. He loved, I guess, just being able to say he was, having fun in these universes he's created, which I think is totally cool. So
yeah,
keep putting them in. Who cares? Do it.
I don't know. His family might have something to say about that.
I mean, yes, unless he said no, then obviously, then not. All right. What haven't we talked about? We haven't talked about how Nick Fury lost his eye.
It's so good.
It's pretty good.
Oh man. So the Flurkin.
Uh-huh.
I spent the entire movie waiting for that darn cat to erupt.
Yeah.
Because that is a scene from the comics.
Yeah.
That cat
the Flurkin is a real thing from the comics.
100%. It was Chewie. The cat was named Chewie in the comics.
Yes.
Which hilariously, you read the comics and you're like, Chewie, okay, I get that reference. It's a Star Wars reference. That makes sense. And then they changed it to Goose, and they're like, oh, Goose. Well, that's a Top Gun reference. That makes sense. Although I guess it's a little older, but I guess they're setting that to, they're doing that because it's the 90s. And then I thought about it. Yeah, then I thought about it a little bit. I'm like, wait a second, Top Gun's not older than Star Wars.
No. But so it's not that much. It's not that much younger though. Like Top Gun came out in 1986.
Yeah.
Right.
And Star Wars episode 77.
Well, yeah, sure. Star Wars original 77, but Return of the Jedi was 83, right?
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyhow, that the scene from the comics was Captain Marvel and Rocket Raccoon, where. It's a good scene. It's a really good scene. I love this scene where Rocket Raccoon is trying to kill the cat because he knows it's a Flurkin, and Flurkins have a bounty on them because they're highly destructive and breed in the thousands via eggs. And so he's like, that's not a cat, it's a Flurkin. And she's like, says the raccoon. And he's like, I'm not a raccoon. And is like, don't kill my cat. Well, I can't promise anything. It's a good scene. Get it off your ship. So like the like Talos being freaked out by it and like, oh, that's not a cat, that's a Flurkin, get it away from me, is great. And then Nick Fury taunting him with it is great. And then it finally doing its thing is great. And then him trying to use it as a weapon is possibly one of the best scenes in the film. Where he's just holding out in front of him.
Yeah.
Do your thing, buddy.
I loved it. I love the tie-in with the, like, I'm trusting you now, not to eat me.
Yes.
And then to be able, especially considering I watched, because we went and watched this on Thursday night, and then on Sunday I was watching Civil War. Or not Civil War, Winter Soldier, which is where he says, the last time I trusted somebody, I lost
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah. And just, and the way he says that line, I would love to. I can't imagine at the time they filmed that they had any idea what they were going to do.
No.
I mean, maybe, who knows? I have no idea. But like the way he says that, it's just so heavy and dark. And you're like, oh my God, you've seen some stuff. But then you find out that it was basically a cat scratch.
Yep. Well, they wrote the like, I'm trusting you line specifically to call back to that, right? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good though. All right, well, I think it's about time we start wrapping things up. Have we talked about what's your favorite goof?
Favorite goof? I mean, I guess. Okay, so now I got to think through a bunch of them. So him holding the cat out in front of him like a weapon. Like just that shot of him just standing there holding it is great. I had another one, but it's gone. What's your favorite goof? Well, I try to remember what mine was or what my other ones were.
I don't know.
Oh, I remembered one that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
If I played the same pinball machine for 6 years, I'd have some high scores too.
Yeah. I don't even know. It didn't feel like there was I don't know, maybe I'm just completely blanking on this film now with the goofs, but none of them really, like, there were like really cute moments and funny lines, but no like super goofs, I guess.
Yeah. That
really stuck out to me.
Yeah. At least not that weren't tied into other things.
Yeah.
Like the Flurkin doing its thing is basically a goof. In the same way that like Rocket doing its like Rocket when he like kills there's like 10 guys all at once and then turns around and like mugs for the camera. That like I would call that a goof, but it like is tied into the actual action of the scene. The second time the like Chewie or Goose does it when it's like he gets the 4 Kree guys and pulls them across the hall and you just hear the that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
Mom won't let me go get your jacket. Mom won't let me wear it anymore since I spilled ketchup on it.
Yeah, like again, it was one of those like, lol, it's the 90s, but when they load up the CD and
Oh
it's just
my
like
god, yes.
doing the progress bar thing, that was a pretty good one.
Oh, the search, like the hunt and peck typing
Yeah.
in the internet cafe is really good.
The in Alta Vista.
In Alta Vista.
Yeah.
Veer's call to Marvel or to Jan Rog getting cut off because the long distance access code is invalid.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good bit. The True Lies standee.
Oh yeah.
Which is just like
good.
it's just a reminder of the time, but it's pretty good. Are you responsible for security for this district? Yeah, but the theater's got its own guy. Like, that's a good line. Basically everything after Talos like reveals, like the reveal that Talos is not actually a bad guy is like everything. I stand before you without deception. Well, who's that guy? It's like, no, all right, that's a fair point. I'm gonna plant my boot where the sun don't shine. Am I supposed to guess where that is? Your ass. Like that's a great exchange. Like there's like a bunch of really good quippy lines that are a lot of fun in this movie. One thing I want to comment on, the recolor of the uniform is awesome. That scene, like the scene with Monica,
the scene where
helping to pick the colors. It's fun, great because it's a fun scene, just in terms of the like playing around with it. But the color, like she starts in the Kree colors from from the movie as they're depicted in the film. The last suit coloration that she lands on before getting her actual colors is green and silver and white, which was the color of the original Captain of Marvel's original Captain Marvel uniform from the comic books. Which is awesome. Like, nice little reference there, and it's subtle because they don't actually give you a look at the whole uniform in that color set. It's just like a third of her shoulder, basically.
They also did the red and gold. Which one of the things I was again reading today and watching today was thinking maybe that could have been a shout out to Shazam. because Shazam was Captain Marvel
for so many years,
before they were just like
2012. I don't think they did a black and yellow, did they?
No, they didn't do a black and yellow. They did that crazy neon one.
Yeah, the crazy neon one. The black and yellow would have just been a reference to the Ms. Marvel costume that she wore for decades, right? But I don't think they did that one. But then like the costume that they landed on, like the costume colors looked amazing. It was a really, really good interpretation of the comic book costume.
Nice.
I am just, the only thing I wish they had brought back was the sash. Because she has a utility belt instead of the sash, but the sash is like iconic for the character, and so I hope it shows up one day.
One day. All right, Matt. Do you have any idea where you would place this movie in a list that you maybe don't even necessarily support anymore? How's your list?
Okay.
Have you looked at it recently?
I'm looking at it. So my list currently is Infinity War, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Avengers, Black Panther, Guardians 2, Age of Ultron, Iron Man, Thor, Ragnarok, Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Thor, Iron Man 3, Captain America the First Avenger, Thor the Dark World, Iron Man 2, Ant-Man, and the Incredible Hulk. And if you had asked me after my first viewing, well, actually, do I still agree with this list? I don't think Infinity War stays at the top of my list.
No, neither does it.
I think it slides down. Otherwise, I'm still pretty happy with that. Like, I'm still pretty happy with that ranking. I still am like comfortable with where Winter Soldier lives. I'm comfortable with where Civil War lives.
I need to bring up Captain America: First Avenger.
Really?
Because I've watched it. Yeah, I've watched that movie 2 or 3 times since we recorded that podcast, and it's just a really, really good movie. It's better than Doctor Strange. It's better than Iron Man in terms of like origin flicks.
Right.
I don't necessarily think it's a better movie than them. Like, I think it should be in my top 10 for sure.
Okay, which is interesting because you've got it way higher than I do.
I know.
But now I'm looking at it, and
that,
it's like, if I were to rank just the origin movies, would that list, like, how would the origin movies stack up against one another? Would that ordering change? Because the answer is probably. And then I'd sort of have to fit it back into the overall ranking to figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you had asked me after my first viewing, I probably would have said below Doctor Strange, which puts it at my number 13.
Yeah.
Or puts it at my number 14 actually. But I think that's selling it short. I think it's better than Doctor Strange. But I'm not sure where. Certainly above Homecoming.
Yeah, it's better than Homecoming for me. It's better than Guardians 2 for me. I don't think it's better than Ragnarok.
Which is your number 8.
Which is currently my number 7. Because
we've got a headline.
Yeah. But I would also probably at this point put Ragnarok above Iron Man. Like, I think if I was to move some stuff around, Ragnarok would go above Iron Man here. I'd probably bring Captain America up and just behind Iron Man, or maybe even just in front of it. And then I'd probably put this just above all of that. Yeah.
I think I know where I'm going to put this. I think I have an answer. I think I've decided.
Okay, where are you
in my current ranking. Like, this is without rearranging the ranking.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm going to place it somewhere, I think it goes between Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Avengers Age of Ultron for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe. I think that's where it lives. I think I like Guardians 2 better, but only just. I think the criticisms I have of this and the criticisms I have of Age of Ultron are of a kind. Where, like, Age of Ultron tries to do too many things and fits them all together, and, like, it's ambitious, but it feels loose as a result of, like, it feels sort of overburdened and bursting at the seams. Whereas this one just sort of, like, again, it feels edited together a bit. And there are, there are some plot threads that don't deliver quite the way I would have liked them to. I think that's where it lives. Just above Age of Ultron.
Fair enough. Yeah, in my list as of right now, I think I put it just below Thor Ragnarok, but I do feel like I need to move some things around, which I think actually puts us in the same spot, doesn't it?
I think you're one below me.
Or I'm one below you right now? Yeah. So, overall, though, I think we probably put this in generally around the same sort of, like, tail end of the top 10 kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
So. Cool.
I've put an empty space in the spreadsheet for you so that you can add it in when you've got a chance.
I'm gonna mess around with those because I want to fix them up. So.
Okay. Well, we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, and in our episode last year about Infinity War, about maybe doing a revisit of Infinity War coming into the Endgame podcast, and it seems like maybe doing a reevaluation of our lists would be a good use of some of our airtime in that episode.
I agree. I think actually there's a few things. So we didn't get to it here, and I'd rather save it. But there was definitely a lot of people over the last few months who have said, "Hey, I'd love for you guys to talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse." Now, I don't want to do an entire episode. This is a podcast about the MCU. But it is a very good movie. So I think we could probably spend a little bit of time talking about that.
Sure.
I think we could spend a little bit of time talking about Avengers Infinity War. Because, again, I don't think it merits an entire hour-long podcast. Just because of the way that I feel like these are structured. But I think we can definitely spend some time going over that again. Because I have watched it once since it came out of theaters. So I saw it twice in theaters back last year, and I've seen it once in full since then, and that was around, I want to say, Christmas time, I feel like.
Right.
Sometime Christmas holidays, I feel like I watched it again, and I definitely had feelings that I could have discussed. So I think what we'll do is Endgame comes out in, I think, about 6 or 7 weeks.
Not even. It's like April 26th.
Endgame. It comes out on April 26th, so
2,
that's
3, 4, 5, 6 weeks exactly, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be 6 weeks actually tomorrow that we'll probably be seeing Endgame.
Yes.
So let's aim to release the episode of the next episode of this podcast probably around April the 18th. Thereabouts, so that'll be a week before Endgame comes out.
Makes sense.
At which point we can talk about Spider-Man a little bit, because I know a lot of people want us to. We can talk about Infinity War again and where we are on that one, because you're right. Looking at the list at the time, we were riding high. It was like 1 a.m., probably closer to 3 by the time we actually said we're like, oh yeah, this is the best Marvel movie ever.
Yeah,
it's not.
Spoilers for our day of lists when we see Endgame, when we come back at 1 a.m. and go live and immediately go, Avengers Endgame is the best movie in the MCU.
I think Avengers Endgame has a better chance of staying the number one in the MCU than Infinity War does.
It's possible.
But
I want to move
out.
Infinity War down, but I still really like that movie. Although,
it's still very good.
Although, to be fair, I have not watched it since theaters, I don't think. My rewatch of it in anticipation of Endgame will be probably my first home video rewatch of it. I went and got the 4K version of it, so I'm gonna give my 4K TV its inaugural run with Infinity War, and we'll see how that looks.
You not?
I haven't.
You bought that TV?
Well, I bought it in November, but I have not actually spun up a 4K like Blu-ray on it yet. I've been watching like 4K media on Netflix and whatever, but I have not actually tried a 4K disc in it yet. So that'll be my official first 4K disc.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that will wrap up things for this episode. We will see you again in about 5 weeks. We'll have 2 episodes for you in April, and then you will be without us again for a couple months until we wait for the next Spider-Man. And then who knows? There's literally no idea. There's nothing.
Yeah. Then I need to like get in touch with Graham and schedule a James Bond podcast or something in anticipation of the next Bond movie, because apparently there are no more Marvel movies coming out. There's nothing on the calendar after Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, Spider-Man will be the last one regardless this year, because we'll have had our 3. But as it is for 2020, we don't actually have any idea what's for sure going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird. I mean, there's going to be something.
Well, we don't know that.
They can't. There's no way they would go an entire calendar year without releasing a movie.
I sure hope not.
I don't think that's a possible. Like, I think they would probably make something in Kevin's backyard before they didn't release something.
Yeah.
Honestly, they could do that and still make millions of dollars.
Well, they better get filming, because they're rapidly running out of time. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is totally possible, unlikely, but totally possible that they have filmed something and we just don't know. I believe that if they really, really set their minds to it, they could film an entire Marvel movie and have no one be the wiser.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, they could. But I guess we'll have to wait and find out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching or listening. Appreciate you as always. We can do this without your support over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. So please go check that out if you are so inclined. You can follow myself on Twitter. I am at James_LRR. Matt is at Matt_LRR. You can find all the stuff that I do with Loading Ready Run at loadingreadyrun.com. Matt, you stream once a week.
I do on Sundays, so depending on when this episode comes out, maybe you will hear it just in time to go visit me on my stream. I am at twitch.tv/Wiggins, Wiggins, and I am, as of the release of this episode, embarking on a playthrough of Final Fantasy IX, I think. So that's what you will see if you come to my stream.
Cool. All right, well, thank you, Matt, for hanging out, chatting with me, and thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you in a few weeks. Toodles.
Bye.
That was an appropriate amount of time. We've weeded out all the peasants. Now it's just the true believers.
That's right.
The ones who have stuck with us all these long, wintry, cold months.
That's right. Hello, true believer.
Yeah, hello, true believer. Welcome to when we talk quickly about the post-credit scenes, of which there are 2.
Surprise, surprise! Who have thought that there would be 2 credit scenes in a Marvel movie?
And it's pretty par for the course. We get a mid-credit scene with, I think, probably just a scene straight out of Endgame would be my guess.
Yeah, the only thing I would expect to be different if it is I think they might restage it for Endgame.
It's possible
just because of how it's staged with the almost like a jump scare at the end. But I anticipate that this will be a scene in Endgame as well.
Yeah, so the mid-credit scene picks up slightly after Snapageddon. We've got
that's the new official name, not the decimation, which apparently is actually what it was called, which angers me intensely.
Yeah, that's a 10th, not 50%, you dummies. Anyways, so Snapageddon has happened. You've got Captain America, you've got Black Widow hanging out and looking at a number climbing above.
I'm going to cut you off. Why is it Snapageddon and not the Snapocalypse?
I don't know. It can be whatever you want, man. I don't judge.
The Snapocalypse, it flows way better.
I disagree.
No, because it has the AP in it. It's an apocalypse, but it's a snapocalypse.
Snapocalypse. Yeah, but the problem is it's not a snap up. It's hard to say because it's like you lose the snap, right? You just say snap. You just say snapocalypse.
Yes.
No,
it's a portmanteau.
Nope, I'm gonna stick with Snapageddon, and you let us know in the comments below.
I'm gonna get overruled by the comments. I know it.
Anyways, at the end of during the mid-credit scene, you've got Cap, you've got Black Widow. They're looking at some screens. Numbers are rising. 3.2 billion of confirmed missing. And who comes in? Rhodey comes in. And he's all like, Rhodey comes in with his cool legs and says, hey, that thing stopped doing its thing. And they walk out. And it turns out that the pager that you see Nick Fury with at the end of Infinity War and the pager that Captain Marvel gives Nick Fury at the end of Captain Marvel has stopped sending its signal. And at which point Bruce Banner comes in and they start talking about how they've hooked it up to this, what should be essentially infinite power. It shouldn't have stopped. You should reboot it, says Captain America, because of course that's what Captain America would say. Just unplug it and plug it back in.
Have you turned it off and back on again?
Exactly. And they're like, I mean, we don't even know what this thing is doing. And Black Widow's like, well, Fury did, so we all want to know who's on the other end. And then snap cut to Captain Marvel, who's like, where's Fury at? Yo, Fury, where you at? New pager, who dis?
New pager, who dis? That's exactly the line from the film.
That should have been the line from the film. Anyways, it definitely feels like, it feels like a scene that's directly lifted from the next film. There's not much nuance in it. There's not much to dissect.
No, but there
and
is.
It's not like it's.
Sorry, there is new information in it though, which I noticed on the second watch through. Captain Marvel's wearing a new suit. Her hair is longer.
I'd say, well, it's been 6 years. It's been longer than that.
Longer than that. It's 24 years.
Yeah.
But
you should be concerned that that's only like, yeah, so her hair's a little bit longer. It's also styled a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And her suit isn't necessarily, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a new suit.
It is a new suit.
It just has a little bit more extra flourish to it.
It is like categorically a new suit. I looked up pictures of it. I can share them with you. But if you look at them like side by side,
I have
the emblem has changed. The proportions of like all of the styling have changed. She has gold shoulder pads instead of red shoulder pads. It's a new suit. It might be the old suit reconfigured into a new appearance. In the lore.
Sorry. I guess what I'm saying is it is not drastically a new suit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It is still sort of the iconic Captain Marvel suit.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely
different
got
styling.
A little bit more to it.
It's the same
Which
as
makes
like
sense
Captain
because,
America's suit changes in every movie, right? Like his suit is different in every film, but it's always a Captain America suit. Same thing here.
Yeah.
It's like it's a different iteration of the same basic design. Spider-Man's getting a new suit in Spider-Man Far From Home. So like they no two suits can ever be the same, but it's a new suit. It's a new suit.
Fair enough. Anyway, so that's what happens in that one. So surprised Captain Marvel is in Endgame.
I think
that's not much of a surprise. Everybody knew that was going to happen.
I think Thanos is in trouble.
Yeah. The post-credit scene, that's where the real news is at.
It sure is.
That's when Goose comes back onto Fury's desk. We're back in 95 now. Or probably 95.
We hope.
Shortly after the events, I am assuming, of the movie. And barfs up the Tesseract.
Yep. Which he ate during the film.
Yeah.
Which I didn't cover in my plot synopsis. But Goose ate the Tesseract and then horked it up like a hairball.
Yeah. Which is just lovely.
Yeah.
Just absolutely lovely.
It's a good scene.
No,
it's funny.
It's a good scene. It's keeping in check with their sort of like, here's a mid-credit, this is the important thing that you probably should know. Okay, the diehards can now clear the casuals can clear the theater. The diehards can stay for the goofy little thing that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's like, of course, Goose barfed up the Tesseract, because if Goose hadn't barfed up the Tesseract, we wouldn't have much of an MCU, considering how much that stupid thing has appeared.
Right.
Do you ever get the feeling like somebody, like maybe Kevin Feige's like daughter, brought home a Tesseract she made in school, and he's just like so damn proud of that thing that he's like, I'm gonna put this in my movies.
Yeah, it's like his equivalent of hanging it on the fridge. It's just
it's just like, not only am I gonna put this in my movies, I'm gonna make it a massive plot point in many of them.
Now we have to trace the Tesseract timeline, though. You realize, because
it's not much of a timeline.
Shows up in Captain America. Well,
yeah, so falls to the sea. So it shows up in Captain. So Red Skull gets it back in Captain America.
Right.
End of Captain America, it falls in the sea.
Yeah.
Howard Stark recovers it.
Yep.
And then basically up until the first Avengers, it just tic-tac-toes around between them, I guess, is like NASA and the U.S. government and eventually S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
Proper.
Yep.
And then we know where it goes from there because we have all the movies.
Yes. Congratulations, you have traced the Tesseract timeline.
Yeah, like obviously there's a hell of a lot more of it before that, but it hasn't ever really been covered. Like obviously it was in Odin's vault for a long time.
Yeah, and then it made its way to Midgard.
It made its way back to Midgard
via ostensibly the Asgardians because of where it is in World War II in the like that big mural of Yggdrasil. So like presumably the Asgardians got it to Earth at some point. Yeah. Now I'm looking forward to the Tesseract CU.
TCU. All right. Well, there are your end credit scenes. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the podcast. We appreciate you who decide to stay for that awkward 15 seconds of silence.
Yeah.
So you can hear us gush a little bit more about silly things that happen in these movies.
I like that we're calling it like them staying as opposed to like just allowing us to continue to invade. Because presumably most of these people who are listening are either are listening in their own space, and we are the intruders. In fact,
I'm probably falling asleep right now.
Yeah, they're waiting. They're waiting for us to leave.
yeah, exactly. It's 2 a.m., guys. I got to get to bed. All right,
I need to clean the theater. Come on, guys, get out.
We're gonna leave for real now. Thanks everybody for watching. Appreciate it or listening. I keep forgetting that this is a podcast and there's a video aspect to it.
If you are watching, please get out of my webcam.
Look, I mean, they can watch. Like, that's a YouTube version. It's just a static image.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. I hope you've enjoyed looking at the static image of Matt dressed as Hawkeye and me dressed as Iron Man for the last hour and 25 minutes. But now we're going to go. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.